There is a restlessness that lives quietly within many of us, a vague ache, almost unnameable, that rises not only in times of crisis, but also in the stillness between them. It is the longing for something more meaning, more clarity, more presence. It is not a craving born from lack, but a subtle remembering, like a dream just out of reach. We search for it in many ways, in books, in meditation, in travel, in lovers, in silence, in sound. Each effort, though sincere, carries within it a paradox. The more we search, the more we reinforce the idea that what we seek is not here, that it is somewhere else, waiting for us in the distance. And so the seeker is born, a persona crafted by the belief that fulfillment lies beyond the current moment. But what if the seeking is itself the veil? What if the one who longs is already, quietly, the very thing it longs for? Rupert Spira's simple phrase, "the seeker is the sought," is not a riddle, nor a metaphor. It is a direct pointing, a quiet bell ringing beneath the noise of the mind. It says, what you are looking for is what you are. Not figuratively, not poetically, literally. But the mind is conditioned to chase, to divide the world into subject and object, path and destination, self and other. It cannot grasp a truth that collapses all distance. To say that the seeker is the sought is to say there never was a separation, only the appearance of one created by thought and sustained by habit. The longing you feel is not a flaw in your being. It is the fragrance of your own depth calling you back to center. It is your true nature, vast, still, unchanging, reminding itself of itself through the form of desire. And so we turn it into a journey. We imagine stages and milestones, rituals and rules. We believe we must earn our way back to what has never left. We treat awakening as a reward rather than a recognition. But reality, as it is, does not demand anything of you. It does not require improvement, only honesty. It waits patiently behind every breath, beneath every thought, within every moment, for the seeking to exhaust itself, for the ego to tire of its chase, for the quiet to be allowed in. You do not need to become silent. You are the silence in which the mind makes noise. You do not need to find God. You are already the space where the divine reveals itself, not as an object, not as an event, but as the unshakable presence of being. And so the question arises, not how do I find it, but what within me believes I am separate from it. When this question is lived, not just asked, the spell begins to lift. The tension of the search begins to unravel. You realize that the seeker was never real, only the seeking. And when the seeking stops, what remains is not emptiness, but intimacy, not loss, but return, not arrival, but recognition. To know that the seeker is the sought is not to solve a puzzle. It is to be undone by truth, not in pieces, but entirely. You have never left home. There is no path to walk. There is only the invitation to stop, to turn inward, and to see, perhaps for the first time, that what you have been looking for is the one who is looking.
What if all of our striving, all of our noble effort to improve, awaken, evolve is born from a mistaken premise? The premise that we are incomplete, that something essential is missing, and that we must somehow earn our return to wholeness. But who told you that you were not already whole? The idea that you are separate from truth is the first illusion. And every step you take toward it, believing it lies ahead, only feeds the illusion that you are far. This is the cruel paradox of the spiritual path. It is most crowded where it is not needed. The very identity that wants to awaken is the same illusion that prevents awakening. The me that seeks liberation is the veil itself. And when the veil is gone, there is no seeker and nothing sought. But do not mistake this for despair. This is not a negation, but a liberation. When the false drops away, what remains is not void, but vastness. Not absence, but presence. You are not being asked to believe anything. You are being asked to see, to become so still, so honest, so radically intimate with this moment that all pretense falls away. And in that moment, there is nothing left but clarity. Not the clarity of the mind, but of being itself. Not answers, but the disappearance of the question. This is not a theory to be debated, but a truth to be lived. The very act of listening to these words, if done from silence, can reveal it. Because the truth does not need time. It needs your absence. Not your absence from life, but the absence of the mental self that constantly interferes. We have been taught to worship the journey, to glorify the process, to cling to growth. But what if all of that is a distraction from what has always been quietly here? The ground of being does not change. It is not improved by your efforts, nor diminished by your mistakes. It does not wait for your perfection. It simply is, and you are it. We search for God, not knowing that the very capacity to search arises within God. We seek peace, not realizing that peace is the nature of the one who seeks. We chase silence, never suspecting that we are the silent already, disturbed only by thoughts about what is missing. There is a tenderness in this realization, a kind of mourning, perhaps for all the years spent looking elsewhere, but also a great joy, like the joy of someone who has wandered far and wide, only to return home and realize they had never left. The seeker is the sought. You are not moving toward something greater. You are waking up from the dream that you were ever apart. No mountain needs to be climbed. No distance needs to be crossed. What separates you from the divine is not your ignorance, but your identification with the one who thinks they must reach it. And so, if you feel tired of the path, if your heart is weary from the endless search, perhaps that exhaustion is grace in disguise. Perhaps it is the final gesture of the self before it dissolves into truth. The surrender you have avoided is not your end, but the end of separation, and with it, the beginning of everything.
There comes a moment on the path, quiet and unannounced, where something drops.
Not something you planned, not something you can force, but a subtle unraveling, like a dreamer realizing they are dreaming. In that moment, there is no fanfare, no final revelation, just a shift so gentle that it might go unnoticed by the mind, yet so profound that it changes everything. You recognize that all your becoming was always happening within what never became, that all your stories unfolded inside a stillness that was never touched. The awareness in which every longing rose and fell was never seeking anything. It simply watched. It allowed. It remained. And this is what you are. Not a person chasing awakening, not a separate entity struggling for union, but the field in which all movement appears and disappears, unchanged, unbroken, whole. Even your spiritual effort, the meditations, the books, the rituals, they were never wrong. They were love in disguise. Like a child reaching out for the embrace of a parent, not realizing the parent had been holding them the entire time. You are not asked to deny your humanity, but to stop mistaking it for the whole of you. To live as awareness is not to abandon the world, but to see it clearly, as an expression, not a prison, as something arising within you, not outside of you. And when you live from this, when the imagined separation dissolves, life becomes simple again. Not always easy, not always smooth, but truthful. There is a calm joy that doesn't depend on outcomes, a love that asks for nothing, a freedom that comes not from escape, but from not needing to escape. This is the end of seeking. Not because the world has finally offered what you wanted, but because you have seen that you were never apart from it. You are not a wave trying to reach the ocean. You are the ocean that momentarily dreamed it was a wave. And now, the dream is gently fading. The longing is folding back into peace. And you are simply here, as you've always been, still, aware, complete. The seeker is the sought, and the home you search for was never anywhere but within.